Do you think King Kong is just a fictional monster movie? What if I told you that beneath the veneer of Hollywood entertainment lies a suppressed truth so disturbing that those who've investigated it have systematically disappeared? The 1933 film wasn't mere entertainment. It was a warning, a confession, a document. The story begins not in a Hollywood studio but in the forgotten files of the British Colonial Office. Documents dated November 1899 describe an expedition to a then uncharted island west of Sumatra. The HMS Marlo, carrying a contingent of Royal Marines and 3 naturalists, was dispatched following reports from Dutch traders of impossible fauna and living mountains that moved through jungle mist. The expedition's official purpose, scientific documentation, its actual mission, sealed in classified orders, assess potential military applications. Captain James Warwick led the expedition. A decorated veteran of colonial campaigns, his personal journals, discovered in 1978 in a Sussex attic and promptly purchased by a private collector, tell a different story than the official reports. The natives speak of a god, he wrote on January 3, 1900, not with reverence, but terror. They build walls not to worship, but to contain. The sacrifices are not offerings, but appeasement. The Marlo landed on February 17, 1900. 27 men disembarked, 11 returned. The official report cites tropical fever and hostile indigenous encounters. Warwick's journal tells of shadows taller than the trees and hands large enough to crush 3 men at once. His final entry, dated March 4th. It watches us, always watching. The eyes show intelligence, not animal, something else. We leave tomorrow. Lansing insists on bringing back evidence. God help us. Lansing was Dr. Edward Lansing, chief naturalist. His specimen collection never reached London. The shipping manifest shows it was loaded onto the Marlo. The receiving documents at the Natural History Museum show it never arrived. 16 crates, contents unlisted, simply vanished during the journey. Along with them, Dr. Lansing himself. The Marlo docked at Southampton on April 30, 1900. Dr. Lansing was recorded as deceased, cause listed as tropical hemorrhagic fever. His body was not returned. His field notes were classified under the Official Secrets Act until 1976, then mysteriously destroyed in a records office fire 3 days before declassification. 5 surviving Marines from the expedition died within 2 years. Accidents, suicides, unexplained disappearances. By 1903, only Captain Warwick remained. He resigned his commission, retreated to his family estate in Sussex, and was rarely seen in public again. Local rumors spoke of nightmares, of servants quitting after hearing their employers' screams in the night. Always the same words: it knows, it follows, it remembers. In 1908, an American film producer named Marion Cooper joined an expedition to document indigenous tribes in Indonesia. Official records show a conventional anthropological journey. Cooper's private correspondence, sold at auction in 1997 to an anonymous collector, reveals he diverted the expedition for 3 weeks to search for what he called the Island of the Colossus. The letters abruptly end in mid-sentence. When Cooper resurfaced in Singapore 2 months later, he refused to discuss what happened. Cooper returned to America and eventually entered the film business. Those close to him noted his obsession with a particular story, a tale he refused to fully divulge but claimed must be told even if disguised. In 1930, he began developing what would become King Kong. The production was plagued by unexplained incidents. 3 cameramen quit after viewing preliminary sketches. A scale model of the creature disappeared from a locked studio overnight. A fire destroyed early footage, though the flames mysteriously affected only scenes featuring the monster itself. The original script contained a prologue set in a government archive showing classified files about a real expedition. This scene was filmed but cut just before release. No copy exists. RKO Pictures executives initially resisted the project, calling it unnecessarily disturbing and not suitable entertainment. Their objections ceased after Cooper arranged a private meeting with an unnamed government official in January 1932. Production resumed with increased security, no visitors, closed sets, All sketches and production materials accounted for daily and locked in a safe that only Cooper could access. The film premiered in March 1933. Its success was immediate. What audiences didn't know was that certain scenes were altered from Cooper's original vision. The natives' sacrificial ritual was toned down. Dialogue about the creature's origins was removed. A scene describing others of its kind was cut entirely. Dr. William Densmore, an anthropologist who served as a consultant on the film, wrote in his unpublished memoir, "Cooper didn't want entertainment, he wanted documentation. The Skull Island sequences were reconstructed from something he'd seen. The wall wasn't a fiction, it was a reproduction. He insisted on accuracy in details no audience would notice. The inscriptions on the temple ruins, the specific arrangement of the natives' offerings, the particular vocalizations of the beast, these weren't creative choices, they were recreations." Densmore died in a house fire in 1936. The manuscript was discovered in a bank vault in 1971. It was purchased by the same anonymous collector who later acquired Cooper's letters and Warwick's journal. In 1934, a Dutch cargo vessel, the Leiden, reported sighting an uncharted island matching the film's location. The captain's log described movement on the cliffs and disturbances in the water that damaged the ship's hull. The Leiden changed course and increased speed. The incident was documented by the Dutch Maritime Authority but dismissed as seafarer superstition. The Leiden disappeared with all hands during its return journey 2 months later. Between 1934 and 1942, 17 separate expeditions attempted to locate the island. None were official. All were private ventures, funded by wealthy individuals whose identities remained hidden behind shell corporations and trusts. 14 expeditions never returned. 3 came back with no results and no records. The leaders of these 3 successful returns all died within a year. Accidents. Always accidents. During World War II, the region became a theater of conflict. Japanese imperial records captured after the war included reports of a naval destroyer that encountered a moving landmass in 1943. The destroyer fired upon what the captain described as a mountain rising from the sea. After the third volley, the mountain reportedly submerged. The destroyer was found drifting 3 days later. The crew had vanished. The ship was undamaged except for immense depressions on the hull, spaced like fingerprints. In 1952, a classified CIA operation codenamed Monarch began monitoring the area. Satellite imaging technology was in its infancy, but the agency deployed what resources it had. The operation's existence was only revealed in 1994 through a FOIA request that was immediately withdrawn. The single-page release mentioned intermittent seismic anomalies inconsistent with volcanic or tectonic activity and surface disturbances suggesting biological origin. The real breakthrough came in 1973 when oceanographer Dr. Helen Fairfield led a deep-sea mapping expedition in the Sunda Strait. Using then-advanced sonar technology, her team detected what they believed was a previously unknown underwater mountain range. As they approached, the formation moved. Their sonar equipment malfunctioned. The readings, preserved on magnetic tape and locked in Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution's archive, showed impossible dimensions. A shape that rose 200 feet from the ocean floor and extended nearly 100 feet in width. Dr. Fairfield's formal report described it as a probable sonar malfunction or natural gas eruption. Her personal research notes, shared with only 3 colleagues, used different language. It was swimming. The formation was swimming. The proportions matched nothing in the fossil record or known marine life. It was either a group moving in perfect synchronization, or it was a single organism of impossible scale. 2 weeks after filing her report, Dr. Fairfield took a sabbatical. She traveled to New York, where she requested access to Marion Cooper's production archives at the Museum of Modern Art. 3 days later, she flew to Indonesia. She never returned. The official investigation concluded she was lost at sea during an unauthorized solo research dive. Her body was never recovered. Her research notes vanished from her colleagues' files simultaneously, though they were stored in 3 separate locations thousands of miles apart. 1976, The declassification of colonial documents revealed the existence of the HMS Marlo expedition. Journalist Trevor Phillips began investigating the connection between these records and Cooper's film. His research led him to retired film technician Samuel Drescher, who had worked on King Kong. Drescher, then 82, initially refused to speak. When Phillips showed him the Marlo documents, Drescher reportedly went pale and whispered, "Cooper said it would find anyone who knew. It would find us eventually." Drescher agreed to a recorded interview, on the condition it remained sealed until after his death. He passed away 3 days later, before the interview could take place. The coroner listed natural causes. The autopsy report noted unusual bruising patterns on his upper torso and arms, 5 elongated marks on each side, consistent with application of significant pressure by an unknown instrument. Phillips continued his investigation. He traveled to Indonesia in early 1977, following Dr. Fairfield's last known movements. His final communication was a postcard to his editor. "Found the location. The wall exists. Not ancient, maintained. Returning with proof." Neither Phillips nor his proof ever arrived. The story might have ended there, another dead end in a decades-long mystery, if not for Operation Deep Scan. In 1985, a joint American-Japanese oceanographic survey began mapping the Pacific seabed using newly developed technology. The operation's primary purpose was mineral exploration, but its secondary function, hidden in classified appendices, was anomaly identification and tracking. On October 17, 1985, at 3:47 hours, scanning equipment on the research vessel Akagarasu detected an object moving at depth. Initial classification identified it as a submarine. Size estimates proved inconsistent with any known submersible. The object changed course directly toward the Akagarasu, rose from a depth of 600 feet, then disappeared from all sensors. The official log records an equipment malfunction lasting 12 minutes. Crew testimonies, sealed under national security orders until 2013, describe something different. Sonar technician Robert Hendricks, "It was alive. No submarine moves like that. We tracked limbs. We measured a heartbeat. What we were seeing was alive." Navigator Kimiko Tanahashi, "Something hit the ship from below. The hull flexed but didn't breach. Whatever struck us was massive and deliberate. The Akagarasu incident was classified. The crew signed non-disclosure agreements. The data was sequestered. But one crew member, whose identity remains unknown, copied the sonar recordings. These recordings circulated among oceanographers as a curiosity until 1991, when biologist Dr. Martin Chen published an analysis in an obscure academic journal. He compared the movement patterns and proportions to known marine mammals, then to dinosaur fossils, then to the creature depicted in King Kong. The correlation with the latter was, in his words, disturbingly precise. Dr. Chen's paper was retracted 2 weeks after publication. The journal issued an apology for methodological errors. Chen resigned his university position and declined all interviews. He moved to a remote location in British Columbia and cut all professional contacts. In 1993, hikers found his research cabin empty, though with no signs of struggle or planned departure. His research materials were gone. He was never located. The connection between these incidents remained tenuous until 2001, when digital restoration of King Kong for DVD release revealed something overlooked for decades. Frame-by-frame analysis showed that the movements of the stop-motion model weren't invented. They were copied. The restoration team consulted primatologists who confirmed the creature's locomotion and behavior didn't match creative interpretations of gorillas from the 1930s. They matched precise motion studies. The model moved like something that had been observed. More disturbing still, the restoration revealed details in the background of certain scenes, inscriptions on the wall that scholars identified as a previously unknown language variant, ritual arrangements that anthropologists recognized as consistent with real prehistoric Pacific isolation cults, geographical features that matched no known island but aligned perfectly with bathymetric surveys of submerged formations in the Sunda Strait. formations that hadn't been mapped until decades after the film's release. How did Cooper know, unless he had seen it? In 2007, a storage unit auction in Los Angeles yielded a collection of personal effects belonging to an unnamed RKO studio executive. Among them was a private journal containing an account of a conversation with Cooper in 1932. M says the government knows about the island and the things living there. Says they've tracked one across the Pacific. It can travel underwater for thousands of miles. It sinks ships, leaves no survivors. He claims they're immortal or close enough to it. He's convinced they're intelligent and hold grudges. Says the picture is his insurance. As long as it's fiction, he's safe. Says they don't want people believing, just watching, as if we're feeding something with our attention. The journal disappeared from the buyer's home 3 days after its discovery. The buyer reported a break-in, though nothing else was taken. The police report mentions unusual damage to the building's exterior walls, large gouges of unknown origin. The pattern continues. Those who investigate too deeply vanish, records disappear, witnesses fall silent, but the evidence accumulates for those who know where to look. In 2011, oceanographers recorded infrasound patterns in the Western Pacific consistent with massive biological movement. The frequency signature matched no known species, but was identical to the fictional roar created for the 1933 film, a roar Cooper had personally supervised and insisted on getting. Exactly right. In 2015, satellite imagery captured a momentary surface disturbance near an uncharted seamount west of Sumatra. The object broke water for less than 3 seconds. Size analysis suggested dimensions impossible for any known marine species. The images were removed from database archives within hours. The analysts who flagged the anomaly were reassigned to different departments. Their security clearances were revoked without explanation. In 2018, the USS Halsey, a guided missile destroyer conducting freedom of navigation operations in the South China Sea, reported sonar contact with an unidentified biological entity of extreme displacement. The entity circled the vessel at a depth of 800 feet for 17 minutes before disappearing. The incident was classified. The sonar crew was replaced at the next port call. No explanation was provided. Why the silence? Why the systematic suppression of evidence spanning more than a century? The answer may lie in what we think we know about King Kong. The film tells us it's a story about a giant ape, about nature versus civilization, about beauty killing the beast. But the truth is darker. The wall on Skull Island wasn't built to keep people out. It was built to keep something in. The natives weren't primitives worshiping a god. They were guardians containing a predator. The sacrifice wasn't superstition. It was necessary feeding. Cooper's original script, fragments of which survive in private collections, included a different ending. Kong doesn't fall from the Empire State Building. He disappears into the ocean, wounded but alive. The final scene described something vast moving beneath the surface, heading out to sea. Cooper was forced to change it. The studio demanded a definitive death. The authorities required closure. The audience needed to believe the threat was eliminated. It wasn't. The true horror of King Kong isn't that such creatures might exist. It's that they do exist, and they're not apes. The gorilla appearance was cinematic shorthand, the closest recognizable image for something far less familiar and far more disturbing. The entities documented across decades of classified reports are something older, something that sees us, watches us, studies us, remembers those who reveal too much. Think about it. Why would Cooper expose the truth as entertainment? Because it was the perfect cover. Anyone who discovered the reality could be dismissed as confusing fiction with fact. And because something was being satisfied by our collective attention, our eyes on the screen, our nightmares afterward, our perpetuation of the story. We feed it with our fascination. We strengthen it with our fear. We sustain it with our continued belief that it's just a movie. The most terrifying line in King Kong isn't spoken by any character. It's the text that opens the film, the quote from an old Arabian proverb that Cooper invented. And the prophet said, and lo, the beast looked upon the face of beauty, and it stayed its hand from killing. And from that day, it was as one dead. Cooper wasn't warning us about the beast being killed by beauty. He was warning us that it only appeared dead, that it watches, that it waits, that it remembers. Since the original film's release, there have been remakes, sequels, reboots. Each generation reinterprets the story. Each version moves further from the truth Cooper tried to encode. Yet, certain details remain consistent across all versions, details the filmmakers include without understanding their significance. The island's location, the wall, the ritual, the creature's movements and behaviors. These aren't creative choices. They're compulsions. The entity influences its own depiction. The most recent documented sighting occurred in December 2023. A Chinese fishing vessel disappeared 180 miles west of Sumatra. The emergency locator beacon transmitted for 22 seconds before failing. The only recovered piece of the vessel was the bridge recorder, showing 3 seconds of video before transmission ended. A black mass rising from the water, proportioned like a human figure, but vastly larger. The footage was confiscated by authorities and deleted from all systems, but not before one Coast Guard officer saved a copy. That officer posted a single frame online with the caption, "Kong lives." The image was removed within minutes. The account was deleted. The officer was reported missing 2 days later. The image, however, had already been downloaded by 17 users. 16 of those users deleted the file within hours, reporting sudden anxiety and the feeling of being watched. The 17th user attempted to enhance the image using digital forensic tools. Their analysis revealed proportions matching exactly those of the creature in the 1933 film. That user's home lost power at 3:27 a.m. on January 9, 2024. Neighbors reported deep impressions in the lawn outside, as if something extremely heavy had stood there. The user was never found. Their computer had been physically crushed, the hard drive removed. I know this because I've assembled the fragments. I've traced the connections. I've spoken with the witnesses who still live, who still remember, who still wake screaming from dreams of being watched by something impossibly large with eyes too intelligent to be animal. I know this because I found Cooper's original notes, preserved by someone who understood their importance, who kept them safe until they could be revealed. The notes contain coordinates, descriptions, warnings, and a single repeated phrase: "It follows those who know." I've been careful. I've presented this as entertainment, as a creepy story for your YouTube enjoyment. That's my protection. That's our collective shield. As long as we pretend it's fiction, we're just audience members, not investigators, not threats, not targets. But you know now. You've heard the pattern. You've seen the consistency across a century of documentation. The entity that inspired King Kong exists. It watches from the depths. It remembers those who speak its truth. If you've made it this far, you're part of the pattern now, part of the knowledge chain. Don't research further. Don't seek verification. Above all, don't travel to the coordinates hidden in plain sight throughout this video. The pattern is always the same. Those who look too deeply disappear. If you believe this is just a story, just entertainment, comment "just fiction" below. It might protect you. It might convince whatever watches these interactions that you're not a threat. If you've noticed something watching you since you started this video, a shadow that doesn't match the light, a weight to the darkness in the corners of your room, a sensation of being observed, I can't help you. No one can. It's already too late. Turn off your screen. Don't look back at the dark corners. Don't acknowledge the weight of attention you can feel right now. Above all, don't let it know you're aware of its presence, because the most terrifying truth behind King Kong isn't that such creatures exist. It's that they never forget a face.